No! This is worthless.
Warning, the following video contains a metric ass ton of blood and gore, since, you know, it's Dead Space. Seriously, this game is super violent. If that's not your thing, I'd watch a different challenge run. I'm really just looking for an excuse to play Dead Space. Why not also do a no upgrades challenge run? Anyway, while Chen gets absolutely ruined here, I'll give you a brief rundown on the challenge. No upgrades of any kind. Hey, I did warn you this game was super violent, and man does it deliver immediately. Anyway, after getting traumatized enough for a lifetime, I get my first weapon, the plasma cutter. Even with the whole no upgrades thing, it's still a fantastic starting weapon. For those new to Dead Space, headshots are completely worthless. You gotta go for the limbs. This is the weakest enemies are ever going to be. It's all uphill from here. My current objective is to fix the tram system, which led me to the maintenance bay, filled with horrible monsters. With the data board tucked safely into my prison pocket, the tram system is fixed and I can move on to medical. While upgrades are banned, the store is not, which means I can buy the suits. Right?
No. Wait.
So I actually put this poll out as I was playing through this, and you guys decided for me. Thankfully, the suit texture I got from the deluxe edition is just a cosmetic, and I can rock the OG suit from the first game. My inventory size and armor are exactly the same, and man, that is going to suck. The only silver lining I really have is that because I'm not buying suits, I have plenty of money to spend on ammo and health. Something interesting that the remake did is that instead of buying weapons by getting schematics, you just find them in the world. However, based on what happened to Chen, I'm not too sold on the pulse rifle at the moment. Continuing on through medical to build something to get me on the do not fly list, or into my first lurkers, or baby morphs. Man, the primary fire on this thing is like shooting spitballs. What's the secondary fire do again? Oh, it's just a grenade launcher. Sweet. Returning to the big ass barricade with my makeshift bomb, and I can continue to the morgue now. At the morgue, I find the captain's rig, as well as the dead captain, and my first infector. Oh joy. Isaac really can't catch a break here, but at least we get to watch this awesome cutscene. Unfortunately for the captain, he has to die again. Not enough that he gets turned into a horrible flesh monster. Yeah, that no health armor upgrade's really showing how tough this is going to get later. So whenever infectors show up, they are the #1 priority, as they'll just turn all the dead bodies into more enemies if left alone. After finally putting the captain down, we can move on to the next problem, as the ship is currently being pulled into the planet. My next stop is engineering, and along the way I pick up the Ripper, which is on a mining ship, because reasons? The first step in fixing our freefall issue is to repair the centrifuge, which does some science shit, I think. After fixing the machine powered by invisible magic, I have my first encounter with the drag tentacle. Basically, shoot the glowing weak point before being dragged into a death hole. Easy, right? At this point, I like to bring up, this is on medium difficulty. That's how little damage I'm doing. Granted, I did miss a few shots, it still takes over 10 shots to free myself. After dealing with the latest bad dragon toy, I obtained quite possibly the best weapon in the game. That's not sarcasm. The fuel economy,
Please clap.
makes it have what felt like the best damage to ammo ratio in the game. Next up on the agenda is getting the engines turned back on, which is apparently just 2 of these power cells. And a button. With the engines fixed, now we can worry about being destroyed by the asteroid field we're flying into. I think what helps make the flamethrower feel so strong is enemies will panic after being on fire long enough. Nothing quite like casual war crimes. You're gonna see that alt fire get used a lot, by the way. Now, so we don't get smashed to bits by the asteroid field, I need to turn the ADS cannons back on, which means meeting Hammond at the bridge. However, along the way I get greeted by my first brute. Sort of. After a brief chat with Hammond, he upgrades my clearance, which means I can open level 2 doors now. However, before I even get the chance to use my level 2 clearance, I'm rudely interrupted by that brute that tried to introduce himself earlier. Now, the key to brute fights is that you really want to get behind them by using stasis and attacking the weak points at the joints of the limbs. If you can cut them off, you can greatly reduce the brute's mobility. Another alternative is to simply just use fire from the front because the armor doesn't resist it. While very heavy in terms of ammo use, it is very safe. After enough perseverance, the brute will fall dead. For all this effort, you are rewarded with a power node. While running around the bridge, rerouting power to the ADS cannons, I come across the contact beam, which has undergone a few changes in this game. It now emits a continuous beam for its primary fire, and the old primary fire from the original game is now the secondary. And being a super powerful weapon means I immediately chuck it into the store, never to be used until the end of the game. Guarding the last of the power I need to divert to the ADS cannons is my second brute, although this time I decide to use stasis because there's a recharge station very nearby, so I can take advantage of essentially infinite stasis, as well as infinite war crimes with the alt fire of the flamethrower. Now, because I'm dumb, I get hit here, and one hit from a normal brute is enough to deal half of my health and damage. So to be less dumb, I go back to the flamethrower. With all the necessary power diverted to the ADS cannons, I can go out and turn them back on by manually recalibrating them, which basically just means using my cursor to target the asteroids and press the E button 5 times for each cannon. It's a lot better than the old minigame you had to do in the first game, but it's still kind of boring. After successfully recalibrating the ADS cannons, we receive what appears to be a deepfake from Nicole asking us to come back to medical. And it turns out to be a trap by Dr. Mercer, who unleashes the Hunter. The Hunter is what happens when a crazy doctor injects necromorph tissue into the brain of a living human being. I'm not making that up. After the galaxy's most extreme game of hide-and-seek ever, the Hunter eventually follows me to a cryo chamber where I'm able to just chop his legs off and freeze him. It just seems kind of strange that Mercer led me directly to the room where I was able to defeat his creation. Something hubris, I guess. As if we didn't have enough problems, the air is now trying to kill us. So now we gotta deal with some Carl Weezers. As opposed to the original game, in the remake you actually have to run up to the Weezers and inject them with a syringe in order to kill them. With the Carls dealt with, we finally come across our first actual boss fight. The Leviathan. And it's basically unchanged from the original. You just shoot the weak spots on the tentacles until you pop all 3. And then the big old mouth hole opens up to shoot the big weak spot and start shooting out these weird throat rocks, which can be grabbed with kinesis and thrown back for a little bit of free damage. In the final phase, he tries to poison you with some fart gas, but it really just doesn't matter. You just shoot it till it dies, and eventually gets vented into space, which is different from the original, if I remember correctly. And he'll never be seen again. Right? Right? After fixing like the 80th catastrophe on this ship, I go to mining, where I gotta send out a distress signal. But of course I can't do that because the launch tube is broken. Story of Isaac's life. I'll give a heart to anyone in the comments who can guess where this segment is probably ripped straight from. It rhymes with Schmesdent Schmeevel 4. Anyway, after completing the totally unique gondola ride, we run into totally Nicole. It's definitely not a hallucination. After a brief conversation with someone who is definitely Nicole, I pick up the SOS beacon. After finding the beacon, my next task is to find the rig of the supervisor of the mining deck, who of course happened to die a horrific death. But hey, I can open level 3 doors now. Isaac must have negative luck at this point because by divine intervention, the launch tube just breaks. So far, the easiest solution that anyone would think of is to destroy the gravity tethers on this asteroid and then launch it into space with the beacon attached to it. That makes sense to me, I guess. Maybe. Well, that's the first death, and I honestly did not see it coming, but then again, I'm not very smart. Putting my unwrinkled brain to its maximum capacity, I decide it would be a good idea to squeeze through the gap where the metal death rings are not currently. Outside in space, it's the same as the inside. You just destroy these two gravity tethers, which then allows you to plant the beacon on the asteroid safely as opposed to dying a horrible fiery death. Would you look at that? Third time's the charm, we can finally launch this damn SOS beacon. Now, as far as I can remember, this is another unique segment added into the remake that was not in the original. The Hunter shows up again, which really surprised me because I don't think that happened in the original. If that's not the case, I would very much like someone to point that out in the comments. Now, ordinarily, I would stay behind to fight as many enemies as I can because that's my best source of loot. However, there's a hunter involved, so I'm just going to do what the brave Sir Robin would encourage me to do, and run away to the elevator. And much to my surprise, that worked for some reason. All the other enemies just didn't really seem that bothered to try and catch up to me, so I just safely make it to the elevator and avoid the hunter once again. Our SOS beacon was successfully picked up by the Valor, a nearby military ship. However, in order to contact them, we need to fix the long-range communicator. To use the communicator, you just have to do a simple puzzle. Oh man, nothing makes you feel dumber than a stupid baby puzzle for babies, am I right? So, the Valor has picked up our escape pod that had the flesh monster that used to be Chen. Well, that's not good. But hey, they're a ship full of military dudes. They could probably handle it, right? Right? Okay, so something is apparently preventing us from opening the long-range antenna. So I'm gonna go find out what that is. I mean, it's not like we vented something into space recently, right?
Thank God that's over! I mean, it's over, right?
Well, shit. So this segment with the Leviathan Remnant replaces the Slug boss fight with the ADS cannons from the original game. Now, I may be in the minority here, but I feel like the weakest part of the remake is probably the boss fights, and even in the original game, they weren't all that fun to begin with. But at least it's not a painful grind or just annoyingly difficult or unfair. So this boss fight has 3 blisters to break, and consequently 3 phases. In the first phase, he just swings a tentacle at you. In the second phase, he shoots little rocks at you. And in the third phase, he breaks your cannon, so you have to finish off the last blister by shooting it. And it's really not that hard. With the Leviathan removed from the ship, we can deploy the long-range antenna to hopefully warn the Valor in time. Anyway, apparently it goes tits up so badly, so quickly for the Valor that they just immediately crash their ship into the Ishimura. 1 necromorph versus an entire ship of military dudes. Place your bets. Next up on my list of things to do is to find the drive core of the Valor somewhere among this mess. And let me introduce you to, by far, my least favorite enemy in the entire franchise. Twitchers. Due to the fact that the soldiers all had stasis modules on their armor, the Twitchers, for some reason, can now move incredibly fast, as opposed to being permanently affected by stasis, which I would have vastly preferred. In addition to their fast speed, they just have more health, because fuck you. So this time, against my smoother brain tendencies, I decided to just kill the exploders by shooting them to death as opposed to shooting the explosive sack. And now, I can safely dispose of the nuke by launching it into space. Which is consequently how we dealt with Chen, by launching him into space. And you see where that has gotten us so far. Hey buddy, you're not looking so good. It looks like you blew off your leg off. I guess I'll even have to show the Enhanced Brute the true power of the flamethrower. Wait, what?
She can't do that. Shoot her or something.
Not one to make the same mistake twice, I'll just abuse the unlimited stasis in the area and just get behind him and start blasting. And fortunately this time, it results in success. And just like that, we have a singularity core, albeit with a little bit of blood on it. After removing the Singularity Core, it's a mad dash to the exit while the Valor is in the middle of a nuclear explosion by the looks of it, and I make it out just in time by the skin of my teeth with no health packs remaining at literally what feels like 1 health. While trying to limp my way to a store, I run into a handful of enemies and I'm just not having it right now. You guys can bathe in the war crimes for all I care. Now, is this a little scummy using the door to shield myself from harm? Yes. Do I feel bad about doing it? Absolutely not. While the game does autosave fairly frequently, I did not want to have to redo any parts simply because I got unlucky to an enemy hitting me. After slowly crawling my way from communications all the way back down to the bridge, I make a mad dash to where I know for a fact there is a store so I can safely heal. One of the new additions to the remake, as opposed to the original, is the inclusion of an AI director who can spawn enemies in previously cleared out areas because fuck you. My next objective takes me to the crew quarters, and something weird has been going on here. I blame Unitology. And as if I could not hate Mercer more, he kills Jacob Temple, one of the only remaining sane survivors aboard the Ishimura, just to make a point. Mercer was more of your typical religious nut in the original. In this game, however, he's just a freaking psychopath.
I think you're dead.
And where we can find Mercer, you can bet the Hunter is not too far behind as well. No prizes for guessing how I deal with this Hunter. If you guessed running away, you would have been correct. After making my way through the crew quarters, I am subjected to an exposition dump by Dr. Kine, who's not a crazy psychopath like Dr. Mercer, he's just the normal crazy like Isaac is. Kine convinces us that in order to solve the Ishimura's problems, we need to return the marker to the planet's surface. Now, call me crazy, that kind of sounds like something the marker would want us to do considering that's where it was found, but hey, what do I know? After a long and arduous journey, I finally arrive at the executive shuttle and install the Singularity Core. Before we can leave, we need to test the shuttle engines for some reason, and no prizes for guessing who finally shows up again. Yep, it's the Hunter. But thankfully this time, we have a method to kill him once and for all as opposed to just freezing him or running away. We can use the shuttle's engines to incinerate him. All I need to do is cripple him, freeze him with stasis, and then incinerate him with the said engines. Which, interestingly enough, for whatever reason, as soon as you do so, all the enemies just run away. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe these enemies were only scripted to show up while the Hunter was alive. Anyway, when I try to leave, I get grabbed by yet another drag tentacle. Mercer shows up, is mad that I killed his toy, and gets death hugged by the same drag tentacle that appears to be grabbing me, which is poetic justice, but I really would have liked to kill him myself. After following the trail to the marker, I find it in this weird crane control room, and I'm able to send it back up to the hangar bay, which makes me one step closer to getting out of this hellhole. And now we return to the place where this whole game started, the hangar bay. After getting the marker safely loaded onto the shuttle, shocker shocker, Kendra has betrayed us by executing Dr. Kine with a pistol that I didn't know she had. Thankfully, my totally alive girlfriend Nicole has showed up and helped me remote pilot the shuttle back to the hangar bay. It was at this point I was ready to commence the endgame, which includes hallucinating while flying a shuttle and somehow safely landing on the planet's surface. Once on the planet's surface, we have to begin an escort track of the marker back to its pedestal, which includes replacing a battery, watching it slowly slide in between the shutters, and deal with the occasional necromorph through the use of war crimes. I seriously cannot recommend using the flamethrower enough for any run. It's amazing. While dealing with a combat encounter with some necromorphs, I experienced the closest I've ever gotten to having a near-death encounter in this game, with the ricochet from the saw blade almost killing me, as well as desperately trying to grab this med pack while there's a lurker trying to shoot me. After a grueling ring of combat encounters with various necromorphs, I finally am able to return the marker to its rightful place and restore the natural order of this planet. And why is it glowing red? That seems like it's evil as hell. I think I may have been duped by a hallucination. I took a calculated risk, but man am I bad at math. And an actual twist that surprised me back when I played the original, Nicole was actually dead the entire time, which is what I've been alluding to during this entire playthrough. Right before I fight the final boss, I do a quick scroll through of all of my equipment to show that none of them have any upgrades whatsoever, because some people might accuse me of lying. The final boss of both the original and the remake is the Hive Mind, which is the central intelligence that controls all the Necromorphs telepathically, through the influence of the marker, I believe. And just like the Leviathan, you shoot the glowing orange/yellow weak spots until it dies. Now that may sound like I'm disparaging the boss, but it's actually a pretty clever way of shining a light on something without actually shining a light on it. After popping all the face weak spots, it opens up its chest to reveal 5 cores, I suppose. You have to pop those one at a time. And you really just have to do a little bit of a ring around the rosy situation where you dodge the acid until you can finally pop the final core, where you are then subjected to my least favorite part about this boss fight, which is a glorified drag tentacle sequence, where you have to shoot one final orange glowing weak spot while being shaken around. But in terms of actual resistance, this is probably the weakest weak spot that you have to destroy out of all of them, which, granted, makes sense considering the situation that you find yourself in. And just like that, yes, you can indeed beat Dead Space Remake without any upgrades whatsoever. Final time of the run was just over 9 hours. As a die-hard fan of the Dead Space series, this challenge was a ton of fun for me to do. I'm very familiar with the original, and the remake didn't really change all that much, so there wasn't really much that surprised me in terms of difficulty. Anyway, if you enjoyed the run, feel free to leave a like. It helps me out a ton, and it's free. If you'd like to support the channel directly, why not subscribe and catch all future updates? If you have an idea for a future challenge run, leave it in a comment below, and it may inspire a future video. Next week's video will be Return to Fallout New Vegas, with a little bit of a Fallout 4 twist. You'll see what I mean when the video comes out. I've been Blew Off My Leg Off, and I'll catch you in the next video.